Hello and welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. In this session of the top topics of the week, we'll delve into 6 most interesting and important topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So let's explore each and every topic in depth so that you're well prepared and informed for the examination. So let's kick off with the first topic.
The next article that we'll be discussing about is realizing the rural-urban continuum. Okay, so this particular topic is very important as we have urbanization in our syllabus, as well as we'll be understanding this particular concept of urban-rural continuum and why is it important for us to have an integrated approach in terms of both governance as well as infrastructure. Okay. So here we'll be discussing about urbanization, where we can actually map it to GS paper 1 under the mains examination, their problems as well as the remedies. Now moving forward, there has been a previous year question which was asked in the year 2013 with respect to the various social problems which originated out of the speedy process of urbanization in India. So this particular topic becomes very, very important as it has already been asked in the exam once. Now let us understand what this particular article is discussing about. Okay, so the article basically discusses the need to address India's urban and rural challenges as a part of continuum rather than distinct categories. It actually says that rather than focusing on both the rural and the urban areas in silos, the government actually has to bring an integrated approach because the population has actually been increasing, or there has been demographic shifts in the tier 2 as well as tier 3 cities which are called as the urban rural regions, that is continuum regions. Okay. Now moving forward, let us understand what is the urban rural continuum. So this refers to an interconnected and overlapping nature of urban and rural areas rather than treating them as separate and distinct categories. And this particular concept emphasizes that the challenges and the issues faced by these areas are not isolated but they are part of a continuous spectrum. That is what they are saying. Any kind of challenges that actually occur in these areas should not be treated in silos such as the urban as well as rural separately. Rather than we need to understand that it is a continuum. Now moving forward, let us understand how has been India's urbanization and what is the status of India's urban-rural continuum. Okay, so currently if you see, India's population actually stood at 1,210 million in 2011 with an urbanization level of 31.1% according to the census of India 2011. And also if you see, India's urban population is expected to grow from 410 million which was in 2015 to around, that is almost double, that is 814 million by the year 2020. And also India is projected to add 4 new mega cities by the year 2030. If you see the kind of, so this is the level of urbanization that India will actually undergo or transition by the year 2050. Now you can see what is the current scenario. So India is actually transitioning into an urban sanctuary due to a significant demographic changes, that is a changes in the population. People are actually moving into the tier 2 as well as the tier 3 cities and their peripheries. Okay. Now let us understand what is the difference between the tier 2 as well as tier 3 cities. Tier 2 are medium-sized cities that have actually, developed a reasonable level of infrastructure and economic activity, but are not as large as or, economically significant as the top metropolitan areas like the tier 1 cities. Okay. And also tier 2 cities often serve as a regional hub and they have growing influence on the surrounding rural areas. Example of tier 2 cities include Pune in Maharashtra and also Ahmedabad in Gujarat, etc. Now let us see what are tier 3 cities. These are actually smaller cities and towns that are typically less developed than the tier 2 cities but are still important in the context of urbanization. They are often characterized by growing population and they also have increasing urban infrastructure development. An example include Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu as well as Siliguri in West Bengal. So these are examples. Now we've actually seen what is the concept of urban-rural continuum. Also we've actually seen the status of India's urbanization. And also we have seen India's urban-rural continuum, and that we actually saw in the context of how the demographic shifts have been happening in tier 2 as well as tier 3 cities. Now let us see what is the current policy framework that India has actually adopted. Okay, so India's challenges are often viewed as either rural or urban. So any area actually faces any challenge, India actually sees it as either a rural problem or an urban problem, and thereby they actually overlook their interconnected nature. So here what is the problem that India actually faces is there is over centralization of finances. That is, financial decentralization has been compromised in a lot of places, leading to constraints on the local bodies like the panchayats, the municipalities, etc. And also within the backdrop of this, the 13th Finance Commission highlighted these issues, noting that local bodies are financially suffocated. So this is actually a concern. The second one, there are tied versus untied grants. Okay, so financial support is often tied to specific schemes as well as specific taxes, where only specific dimensions, like for example only the education, only the health is actually focused on, which compromises the other dimensions. So these are called as tied grants, such as the linkage between property taxes as well as the SGST, causing the risks to losing grants. So now here it is important for us to understand what are tied grants as well as what are untied grants. Okay, so tied grants are nothing but these are the funds provided by higher levels of the government that has to be used only for specific purposes of the projects. Okay, and they come with conditions that limit their use to predetermined areas or initiatives. For example, the funds in India that are provided under various central schemes, for example, you take AMRUT, that is Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. These are considered tied grants. Okay, that is, these grants are actually marked for specific urban infrastructure projects only, such as the sewage treatment plants, and cannot be used for other purposes like education, health, etc. So on the contrary, if you have to know what are untied grants, they on the other hand offer more flexibility. That is, the local bodies can actually use these funds for a range of other purposes also as per their discretion and needs. Example, the Finance Commission grants that are united can be used by the local bodies for a variety of needs, including infrastructure development, education, health, etc., without any kind of strict conditions or limitations. Now, what are the challenges with existing flagship programs in India? Is that first one, if we see Swachh Bharat Mission and Amrut, as we discussed, these programs focus only on urban infrastructure, but they fail to consider the urban-rural continuum. And also, Amrut's funding excludes the contiguous areas like the census towns and the urban villages, okay, as it is focused only on that particular area. That is what is called as inadequate coverage. Okay, so again, Amrut and Swachh Bharat Mission address similar outcomes, but they actually address it separately. So there is a missed opportunity for integrated planning and infrastructure development, particularly in the peripheral urban areas. Now, what are the governance models as well as recommendations? If you see the framework of the 73rd and the 74th constitutional amendments, these actually envision stronger district planning committees that include both the rural as well as the urban local bodies. However, these committees have become, subordinate to the district bureaucracy with time. Next, if you see, there has to be need for strengthened district planning committees where you need to revisit and strengthen these committees. This could help address the challenges better across the urban-rural continuum more effectively. Next one, if we actually see a case study, here Kerala actually acts as a beautiful case study where it has a unified approach to the local bodies. Where this is very important, you can actually write it even in your mains examination. In Kerala, both the urban and the rural local bodies fall under the Ministry of Local Self-Governments, and this is actually united, right? So this actually helps coordinate the efforts between different levels of governance, including the municipal as well as the village or the panchayat administration. So it is unified as it actually comes under one ministry, that is Ministry of Local Self-Governments. Example, you can take a prominent example, for example, solid waste landfill site. The issue is, a proposed solid waste landfill site was actually planned on the periphery of a particular town in, Kerala. This project aimed to address waste management needs by providing a location for the disposal of solid waste from both the rural and the nearby urban areas. The challenges that this would actually face, that is, they are trying to actually bring a solid waste landfill at a particular region where both the urban and the rural areas, they can actually dump it. But what can be the challenges? That the site faced opposition from the local residents and public pressure, which could have complicated or delayed the implementation of the project. But how Kerala actually stands as an example, it's because of the unified approach where both the rural and the urban local bodies fall under one ministry of local self-governments. So there was actually quicker resolution because of integrated decision making. Also, there was efficient coordination where it actually enables coordination between different local bodies, making it easier to address the concerns and implement solutions without any kind of bureaucratic delays. Also, what is the benefit of having the unified governance is that there is unified approach to the issues. That is, you have a holistic bird's eye view of this issue, which helps in designing the solutions that consider the needs and impact on the entire region rather than treating the urban and the rural areas separately. Next is enhanced public engagement. So this actually gives a responsive administration where the unified ministry can more effectively engage with the public and address the concerns, as it is a broader mandate covering both the urban as well as the rural areas. Okay. Next one is faster implementation can be done, as well as improved outcomes are there. That is in terms of better planning and execution of the project that span across both the urban and the rural areas, ultimately leading to more effective solutions and enhanced public satisfaction. So what is the way forward or the conclusion? Here it is actually important to actually understand that India's challenges as well as concerns should not be isolated or be treated in silos. So what should be the conclusion of the way forward is that there has to be integrative planning both in terms of infrastructure as well as governance. And also, India's rapidly expanding urban areas necessitate urgent interventions that consider the urban-rural continuum. And traditional models of separate urban and rural local bodies also need updating. And finally, there is need for imaginative planning. What does that mean? There should be more flexibility in designing plans collaboratively across the urban and the rural areas to address the blurred lines between them effectively.
If we talk about the second article of the day, the EVM distraction, as you can see here, this EVM, electronic voting machine, UPSC has directly asked mains question earlier. And so many people have had or still are having apprehensions related to EVM, electronic voting machine. How far it is working properly, whether it can be tampered with or not, or is it foolproof or not. All these things are going on. But now many people or political experts are also saying that 2024 elections, BJP did not get absolute majority. So some fears have been rather allayed. And people are a little bit more trusting towards EVM as of now. And according to the author of this article, that is Yogendra Yadav, he's saying that these kind of apprehension should go away now. Because we are seeing it's not like BJP is winning or any political party is winning election after election. We are not pinpointing any political party, but yes, different kind of elections we are witnessing, and we should not be. Once, let's say if we are getting defeated, we should not be pinpointing at EVM, and we should move forward and talk about more other different kind of democratic reforms, which is the need of for a country like India. So now, previous question, as we have discussed, questions directly on EVM has been asked by UPSC earlier, and they will keep on asking it because this is a news which has been in news and will be in news in future as well. Just like we keep on talking about one nation, one election, EVM is also a very pertinent issue. So what is the context? The debate surrounding electronic voting machine is widespread in India, and it has been going on. And earlier, because we want democracy to survive in our country, and sometimes we feel like we are helpless, and sometimes there is apathy among people also. What is the word here? Apathy. Sometimes people will not go to vote because they feel like everything has already been decided. All these things leads to discussion about EVM. And earlier the debates was about transformation, decentralization of power, proportional representation. And again, one question for you. If you know the difference between proportional representation and first past the post system, FPTP, you can post it in the comment section. Which kind of system India has for Lok Sabha election? Do we have proportional representation for any kind of election in India? If you know it, you can post it in the comment section. So now, according to the author of the article, Yogendra Yadav, who is a very influential political activist, earlier part of AAP,
he's saying that these debates need to die down now and we have to focus on other areas, other arenas of democratic reforms. But since the article is about EVM and UPSC has asked a question directly on EVM, we should be knowing about EVM. So EVM, devices used to record votes during elections, replacing traditional ballot paper system. So earlier there was ballot paper where you used to go, you used to fold it, you used to put it, and then people used to, ballot stuffing used to happen. Sometimes all the ballot papers were taken away by rogue elements. All these things used to happen. Sometimes invalid votes used to happen during the ballot paper system. Plus, lots of papers were used, which is environmentally damaging, which is not promoting environmental conservation. So EVMs has good points also, with lots of good points, lots of advantages, but there are certain issues also which we have to talk about. First of all, we should know about EVMs, how they work, what are the different components. So there is a control unit which is used by polling officers to manage voting. Then there is a ballot unit where voters will go and vote. Tamper-proof design. See, understand this. And this debate has been going on for like last 6-7 years that EVM can be tempered. And many political experts have given example of Western countries, West European countries, where in some European countries they have banned EVM. And that example was used to prove that, okay, we don't want EVM in India. But what you have to understand is, in European countries when they were banned, they were not standalone. They were connected to the network or internet. Mostly the EVMs which were used in Europe. That is not the case in India. They are standalone. They are not connected to network or internet. Generally, when anything is connected to network or internet, they can be tampered with. Means all these we have seen in movies, na? All these people, hackers, that is the term. So if we talk about the second point, tamper-proof design, please understand, many political experts have talked about that in Western European countries, EVM has been banned in some of these countries because they were tampered with. What makes our EVM different from their EVM is the fact that our EVMs are standalone. They are not connected to wireless or any network or internet, unlike many of these European countries' EVMs, so-called EVMs. So when any particular thing is connected to network or internet, they are more liable to be impacted by hackers. So please understand, and that's what that is the thing which separates our EVMs from theirs and makes our EVM more hack-proof or tamper-proof. VVPAT integration. So earlier people used to say that we don't know whom we have voted, how do we verify it? So to allay those fears that, okay, if I have voted for, let's say, BJP or Congress or TDP or any other political party, the vote is going to that political party and that political candidate only, VVPAT was introduced. Voter verifiable paper audit trail, where they will show you for some seconds, 8 to 10 seconds, whom you have voted, and then that particular sheet will go inside. So this has been used to allay fear that, okay, whosoever you have voted, that particular person has got the vote, right? And they print a paper slip. Now, there is again debate here. In current scenario, around 8 to 10% of VVPAT, and that number varies, is counted to allay fears among people. And many people feel that, no, it has to be increased. We cannot just count 10% of VVPAT. We have to count more VVPAT to ensure that there is no discrepancy. There is one more criticism of EVM, that sometimes 100 people voted, but only 80 results are coming. Where are 20 votes going? All these are different kind of apprehensions which has been raised by political experts. First of all, let's talk about the advantages now. Speed. Counting votes using EVM is much faster than manual ballot or paper ballot counting. Reduced human error. EVMs minimize error in tallying, which were earlier common in manual vote counting. So because humans were involved, here machines are involved to a greater extent. So these human errors are being reduced to a greater extent. Environmental friendly, we have talked about. In like paper, when we are talking about physical ballot, you're using more and more papers, which is not the case with EVM. Prevention of invalid votes. So earlier people, literacy was an issue in our country some time back. Still, like, we have reached a very high level of literacy now, more than 70%. But people used to vote, like sometimes it used to happen that people voted in, like, invalid votes happen or something else happened. But now that case has means reduced, because you can see the party symbol, all these things you can see in big bold letters. So prevention of invalid votes are also happening because of EVM. Then the controversy, allegation of tampering, it is not going away, even though we have discussed it that EVM is standalone, unlike the European countries' EVMs which were connected with wireless or internet. But even then, people are saying that even though it is a standalone, still it can be tampered with. Despite the technical safeguards, EVM has been at the center of political debates. And why we are having this continuous discussion? Because there is a saying that election should not only be fair, election should also be seen as fair. And that's why we should allay all the concerns which people have related to EVMs. Discrepancies in vote cast and counted, we have just discussed. This is one of the major issues associated with EVM. People say that 100 people, let's say, went and voted. But why only 80 votes they are declaring and all those things? So reports have surfaced about mismatch between the number of votes cast and votes counted in some constituency, which has raised concern about the reliability of the machine. Where are those 20 votes going? Election Commission's transparency, delay in releasing election data, lack of clarity on discrepancies. Many people also allege that Election Commission is sometimes favorable to the ruling parties. All these concerns have to be taken care of by Election Commission, and they have to ensure that election is not only fair, election is also seen to be happening in a fair manner. Reforms and solutions proposed. Full VVPAT verification. Don't only do 10% VVPAT verification. Do it for all. So that this discrepancy that how many people went for voting and how many votes we are counting, all these things are done away with and we have no issues at all. Reconciliation of data. Election Commission should ensure thorough reconciliation of voter turnout and votes counted. Public disclosure. Detailed election data, forms and voter information should be made public in a timely manner. Criminalization of politics, politicization of criminals. All these things have also or are needed to be taken care of by Election Commission. Again, there's a question for you since we have discussed these words. What is the difference between politicization of criminals and criminalization of politics? If you know it, you can again post it in the comment section. So what is the conclusion here? EVMs have greatly improved the voting process in India. The surrounding debates highlights the need for greater transparency because even in your GS2, you have transparency and accountability in your syllabus. And we are continuously talking about election should not only be fair, it should also be seen as fair, right? And trust building measures, this is a continuous process. This will keep on going. Proper reforms could shift the focus from questioning the voting mechanism to broader electoral reforms essential for strengthening democracy.
So the next article is about Armed Forces Special Powers Act, that is AFSPA. Now this is in news because Supreme Court has recently closed criminal proceedings against army personnel. See, in the year 2021, Indian Army was conducting an operation in the region of Nagaland. Now they wanted to kill some militants, but mistakenly they killed some civilian or tribal population of Nagaland. Now here a case has been registered against these 30 army personnel for killing civilian population. And these army personnel killed people with their power of AFSPA, that is Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Now we need to know what is this act and what are the legal provisions made under it. This topic becomes important for GS paper 3 as it involves internal security, various security forces and agencies and their mandate. Now look at this previous year question. It says human rights activists constantly highlight the fact that Armed Forces Special Powers Act 1958 AFSPA is a draconian act leading to cases of human rights abuses by security forces. What sections of AFSPA are opposed by the activists? Critically evaluate the requirement with reference to the view held by Apex Court. So here you need to specifically mention the sections of AFSPA. So you must know about it specifically and also some of the judgments given by court. Now moving ahead. What is the context? We said that in the year 2021 this case took place, after which a criminal case was registered against the 30 army personnel. And after that the Union Home Ministry said that we are not going to allow any prosecution against these army personnel. Why? Because there is an act called Armed Forces Special Powers Act and there is section 6 which says that if Union central government does not provide the sanction, then prosecution cannot take place. Now first of all, what is AFSPA? How this law came into picture? See, this is an act of parliament. It was brought in the year 1958. But there is a history. That history is of British era. You see, in the year 1942, India had gone for Quit India movement. At that time, British government wanted to curb this Quit India movement. For that, they decided that we'll give immense power to the armed forces, that is their army. That power was somewhat like this, that they can arrest anybody without any warrant, they can kill anybody and there will not be any prosecution against this army personnel for doing this act. So this kind of power was given by the government of that time in the form of an ordinance. Now after 1947, that is after the independence, Indian government, instead of removing such provisions, rather came up with an act in 1958, and that act was focusing on the insurgency in northeast. See, Indian government observed that the northeastern part of India was very much unstable, and to maintain the stability, the basic law and order, government required to take some very harsh actions. Government required to go for providing some very powerful provisions for the army personnel. Now, army was given power to ensure that basic law and order is maintained. So, here if you see the present scenario, at this moment, this AFSPA is enforced in Jammu and Kashmir, Assam, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland, considering that there are some disturbed areas in these particular regions. Now, this act is enforced by Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, moving ahead, what are the key provisions given under AFSPA? First of all, there is some region which is declared as disturbed region. Now, once a region is considered as disturbed, then you can send your army and the army will have entire power which is given under this act. But first of all, who is going to declare one particular area as disturbed area? Now, this power is there with the central government, then governor of the state and the administrator of the union territory. Apart from these three authorities, nobody can declare any area as disturbed area. Okay. Now, what are the powers exactly given under this act? First of all, army can go and search without warrant. They can get into your house, search anything, even if they do not have any kind of warrant. They can even destruct your property. Let's say army thought that there is a militant who is taking shelter in a particular region. So, they can use grenade and destroy entire property. They can arrest any individual just because they have a suspicion, and not just arrest. If required, they can go for firing. So, that means they can even kill any person if required. See, such powers are given because the situation itself is very disturbed. You see, if there is anarchical condition, any person is killing any other person. Let's say the situation in Manipur at this moment. Such chaotic and anarchical situation requires state to go for such harsh action just to maintain basic law and order. Now, this act also mentions under the section 4 that there will not be any prosecution of any army personnel even if he goes for killing that person. That means you are saying you can kill anyone. Such authority has been provided. Now, obviously, there will be debate when you are providing such heavy powers to the armed forces. So, there are some people who argue against AFSPA, there are some who support it. Now, those who are supporting, what do they say? They say that when there is a problem of terrorism or problem of insurgency, we require a law which is very harsh because we want stability in the region. Insurgency means there are some people who are trying to wage a war against the state itself. So, entire state system, state machinery, they want that it should collapse. So, for example, you can talk about Naxalites. They are going for insurgency. So, for that such powers are required. Then we want that the security forces should have enough powers to act swiftly. If in case they are taking an action and after a few years there will be prosecution against them in the court of law, do you think that personnel will act without fear? No. So, to act swiftly, we require such powers. And there is a role of constitutional validity. There was a case in 1997, Naga People's Movement for Human Rights versus Union of India. In this case, Supreme Court upheld this law, said that AFSPA is necessary. Although Supreme Court provided some guidelines that you should not use it whimsically, rather you should ensure that these disturbed areas, when you are declaring it, after declaration you should review after some time. You should not put it as disturbed area for a very long period. Then you should use minimum forces. And third, central government, while taking this decision, they should consult state governments too. So, first of all, this AFSPA has been upheld by Supreme Court, but there are guidelines definitely. Now, there is another side wherein people are arguing against AFSPA. They say that we should repeal this law altogether. What do they say? First of all, law and order is the responsibility of state governments and not the central government. So, when you are saying it is state government's authority, you are curbing the state's autonomy altogether because union government is coming up with this idea that this area is disturbed area, will send the army. So, this is questionable. Second, excessive use of force. See, already the area is disturbed and you are using excessive force. What will happen? People will get more angry and this will further escalate the tension in that region. Third, what about the civil liberties or fundamental rights of people? If you look at Article 21 of the Constitution, it provides right to life to every person. I have right to life, nobody can kill me. But this law is allowing army personnel to kill a person. Then we have Article 19, which talks about freedom of movement. A person can go from one region to another region. But when army is using AFSPA, they may stop you from that particular movement. They can detain you. They can put you under their arrest. So, these fundamental rights are directly violated because of AFSPA. Then what about the accountability? If any person is killed by any other person, let's say an army person is killing any other person whimsically, what about the accountability of the government or that army personnel? If you say that the person is completely allowed, then he will definitely kill anyone. And there are some evidences of abuse also. So there was a commission called Hegde Commission and there are many NGO reports who claim that there are some extrajudicial killings. That means army personnel are killing civilians too while killing these other militants. So we need to consider this issue again. And what about international law? Now if you look at United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights or International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, they clearly mention that we should not have any such authority in the hands of state where state is killing people. So we are saying if we want to align ourselves with the international law, we should remove this provision of AFSPA altogether. Now moving forward, if we want to reform, then what are the recommendations? Now one recommendation comes from this Jeevan Reddy committee of 2004. They said that we should remove AFSPA altogether, but bring some of the provisions of AFSPA in this Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. Also they said that if there are any victims who are saying that we should not have killed or our son should not have killed, then there should be some grievance redressal mechanism for these citizens. Okay. Then second recommendation comes from second ARC, Administrative Reforms Commission. They also said that we should remove this particular act. And third, Santosh Hegde Commission. They said that we should review this AFSPA after every 6 months and there should be more accountability, more transparency, because that is the job of government to ensure.
Students, the title of the next topic is Can Sheikh Hasina be extradited? Which means, can India send her back to Bangladesh? Extradition. So, under this article, we will understand about the extradition treaty signed between both India and Bangladesh, right? So, important for both prelims as well as mains. Mostly it is important from the prelims perspective, right? Now, a PYQ, critically examine the compulsions which prompted India to play a decisive role in the emergence of Bangladesh. Similar such question on the extradition treaty can be asked in the prelims examination. Now, what is the context? The article discusses the potential extradition of Sheikh Hasina, who is the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, right? Because of the vehement protests in Bangladesh, she was forced to flee Bangladesh and she sought political asylum in our country. Now, Bangladesh wants that India should release Sheikh Hasina and she should be sent back to Bangladesh. The Bangladesh International Crimes Tribunal is requesting her extradition. Why? Because there are many charges filed against Sheikh Hasina related to murder, torture, abduction, crime against humanity and genocide. These are the charges filed against Sheikh Hasina. So, a treaty was signed for the first time between both the nations in the year 13 and revised in the year 2016. The purpose was to facilitate the smoother transfer of fugitives. Now, who are fugitives? The people who actually make a crime or do a crime in the country and flee to other country. These are known as fugitives. Now, for Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina is a fugitive. Similarly, for India, Vijay Mallya is a fugitive, right? Because we feel that and we believe that he has committed a crime in India and living in a foreign country. Right? Now, this agreement was created or signed. Why? Because the extremists from the northeastern country used to attack India and used to take safe haven in Bangladesh. So, they used to attack the Indian army personnel and hide in Bangladesh. And the Bangladesh militants also did the same thing. They used to attack in Bangladesh and used to come to India. For example, members of groups like the Jamaat-ul-Mujahideen Bangladesh had found sanctuary in Indian states such as West Bengal and Assam. Now, under this treaty, because of this treaty, India was able to successfully secure the extradition of a prominent leader of this terrorist group. United Liberation Front of Assam is one of the proscribed terrorist organization under UAPA. And many such fugitives, India was successful in bringing them back to our country. Now, which are the key provisions? This treaty signed between Bangladesh and India in 13, revised in 16, obligates, makes it mandatory for both the countries to hand over individuals who are either charged with or convicted of or wanted of committing an extraditable offence by the courts of the requesting nation. Which means if India believes that a person who is living in Bangladesh has committed a crime in India, then India or Bangladesh would be obliged to send that India's wanted criminal back to India. Now, an extraditable offence according to the treaty is defined as one of that carries a minimum sentence of at least 1 year of imprisonment. Right? For an offence to qualify for extradition, how would you understand if the offence is qualified under extradition? It must meet the principle of dual criminality. What is this dual criminality? Which means the crime should be punishable by law in both the countries. For example, murder. Murder is a crime which is punishable in both the countries. This is known as dual criminality. The treaty further allows extradition for those who attempt to commit, help, get involved, incite or act as an accomplice in committing an extraditable offence. So, if anyone is helping other person to commit a crime, even that person has to be extradited. But there are certain exceptions. Which are the exceptions? The treaty permits the refusal of extradition if the offence is deemed political in nature. Let's say, for example, there's one, let's say Congress, for example. The Congress, like the BJP is targeting the Congress or the Rahul Gandhi flees India and goes to Bangladesh. Now, this treaty does not mandate Bangladesh to return Rahul Gandhi back to India. Why? Because this actually offence is political in nature. That's the reason political nature is exempted. However, this exemption is limited as the treaty provides a comprehensive list of serious crimes. And these crimes cannot be classified as political offences. For example, murder, manslaughter, assault, explosions, possession of explosives or weapons with the intent to endanger life using firearms to resist, arrest, property damage with the intent to endanger life, which means, let's say for example, if any of the politician is involved in any of these crimes, then he does not get prevention or he is not prevented under the treaty. So, if there is political pressure, political targeting, in such cases, the political person can seek refuge in the other country and the other country is also not obliged to send that person back to the country. But here, Sheikh Hasina, she is charged of murder, right? And that's the reason under this treaty, India is actually obligated to send her back to Bangladesh. Let's see how the developments will unfold from here, right?
The next article that we'll be discussing about is, should children be barred from social media? So, as the topic actually seems very simple, we need to discuss a lot of social and society angle, both with respect to that of the children perspective, how does it actually hinder their privacy, and also we'll be looking at the parental perspective. And also there is one more dimension that is actually given here. What is the dimension of online safety, as well as what is the accountability that a particular social media platform would actually give. So all these things we'll actually discuss. So in this particular article, we are going to discuss about the impact of social media on children, particularly what will be the negative impact, and then what is the importance of having digital literacy, especially among the parents, in order to monitor the children, and also how is it going to affect the privacy of the child. And this particular topic becomes very, very important under GS paper 2, vulnerable sections of the society, for your mains examination. Now moving forward, there has already been a question on social media with respect to that of the UPSC mains examination 2016. So social media on the elders, social media on terrorism, social media on the youth, the children, the ill effects, all this becomes very, very important specifically for your mains examination. Now moving forward, it is important for us to understand what this article is discussing about. So the article actually discusses the ongoing debate surrounding the need for a minimum age to use the social media. Okay, so what happens is that there has been a recent announcement that actually came from the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Anthony Albanese, and he actually says that there has to be a particular age for the children to actually enroll in social media like Instagram, Facebook, etc. Okay, so here let us see what are the debates surrounding the same. So, the key highlights of the recent announcement and the debates around the same include, first one, there has actually been an observation of an increased online activity specifically after the COVID pandemic, okay? And what are all the parental concerns that we'll also see. So, post the pandemic, there has been a significant rise in children's online activity because, the classes itself actually started commencing online. Next, the push for restrictions, that is, you can restrict them, but it primarily comes from the concerned parents who fear the potential harms of social media on the young users. Next is, however, an outright ban, that is, if you totally refrain the child from the social media platform, this may not solve the issue of the child safety online. Next one, instead of this, what the article says is, there is a need to hold the tech companies, that is, whichever platform is actually providing you that social media app or something, that has to be accountable for creating safer, more responsible digital spaces for the younger audiences. So, this is one dimension that was discussed in the article. The second one is, it talks about the challenges of enforcing the age restrictions. So, as you know, there are a lot of practical difficulties that actually come with restricting the age of the children who have to be involved in social media, okay? So, in this digital realm, where everything is actually becoming digital, children can often find ways to circumvent the barriers, okay? Obviously, when there is a restriction, we actually try to circumvent that restriction and move across, so making bans less effective. For example, there was recent cases in South Korea, where South Korea attempted to regulate the online gaming. What happened is that theft actually became a bigger problem after, introducing the gaming curfew for the minors. So, that is also a concern. Next concern it actually talks about, that is this article talks about, is it talks about what is the kind of burden it actually creates on the parents of these children, and there are also specific concerns on low literacy levels, particularly in countries like India, okay? And also there is a term called as sharenting, which is actually discussed in this article. So let us see, there is a huge burden placed on the parents to regulate the children's online activity. This challenge is particularly amplified in countries like India, where digital literacy levels are relatively low, and also many parents do not have the necessary skills or the knowledge to guide their children in safe online practices. Thereby, it makes the entire practice difficult to enforce the age restrictions or monitor the children's use of technology effectively. Then I told you the practice of sharenting, right? Where the parents tend to, when they use social media, they tend to unintentionally share the, information about the children online, and this actually compromises the privacy of the child, okay? Now, it is important for us to understand what are the ill effects of social media on children. Let's quickly run through one by one. The first is mental health issues. So, research indicates that children using social media are more prone to feelings of sadness. They have anxiety. It may even lead to suicide, okay? Loneliness, and in extreme cases may experience thought of self-harm and even suicide, as I told you. So, here it is always, very important to substantiate your answers with examples. So when you're talking about mental health issues, you need to think about, has there been any real life incident that had actually happened? So here you can quote example of, in 2017, if you see, there was this, Blue Whale Challenge. This was an online game, okay? And this actually took away lives of so many youngsters, especially the boys in the state of Tamil Nadu. Now moving forward, next one is exposure to political manipulation. That is, social media can be a platform for spreading, the political propaganda, sometimes right, many times wrong, and often targeting young minds in order to manipulate their opinions for political gain. For example, again, there was actually Chennai water crisis that actually took place. So here all my examples are actually taken from the state of Tamil Nadu. You can actually take from the state you belong to, or any other, to diversify the examples, you can actually take one case from across different states as well, okay? So here, during the Chennai water crisis in 2019, what happened? Social media was actually flooded with politically motivated, content, and this actually had spread a lot of false information to the public and, about the state government and the way of them actually handling the situation. So this is one such example of exposure to political manipulation. The third one is spread of misinformation, okay? So the vast reach of social media, especially WhatsApp, okay, this actually allows the intentional spread of fake news, which can actually lead to a lot of fear, a lot of confusion and instability in the minds of the children and the society at large. So over here, there were actually a lot of, false information about child abduction gangs, okay, in the state of Tamil Nadu in 2018. And this actually created a lot of ruckus, not only in the minds of children, but also incited the fear as well as, uncertainty in the minds of parents. Next one is facilitation of illegal activities. So here social media has unfortunately become a breeding ground for illegal activities like trafficking of children, exploitation of children, bullying of children and drug trafficking, exposing these, children to dangers, okay? And also you can actually see the next one, that is they are actually diverted from education. So for example, if you see in 2019, TikTok actually came under fire in Tamil Nadu when it was actually found that it was a platform which is used to generate a lot of inappropriate content, okay, including videos that actually showed a lot of violence, as well as it actually showed a lot of exploitation. And then they were, a lot of minors were actually involved because TikTok was a fame, in 2019. And then what happened? The Madras High Court even temporarily banned TikTok, okay, over the concerns that it was actually creating harmful impact on the children. And then distraction for education, that during the 2020 lockdown, many students actually, they succumbed to addiction of this, gaming, that is PUBG gaming and all. So social media serves as a significant distraction for children, diverting their focus from their academics and negatively impacts their educational progress as well as future career prospects. Next, if you see, there are privacy violations. First, I actually discussed with you something called as the sharenting, and also children's personal information is often at risk on social media platforms, which can lead to privacy breaches and exploitation. Next, increased risk of financial scams. There is a lot of cyber frauds that actually happen. So that is children are vulnerable in order to falling prey to financial frauds, which have increasingly found their way into social media platforms. Next one, it also leads to suicides, okay. Next one, cyberbullying as well as child abuse. Incidents of bullying and abuse are rising and young girls specifically are more prone to them. So, it is your responsibility to use the digital media platforms very, very effectively and safely only to the fruitful use of yourself. Now, moving forward, what are few of the suggested measures that have been given by the author? Is that incorporating digital literacy and resilience in education. Definitely it's important, right? That is, you need to teach your children how to use the media effectively, okay? And students should also be equipped with skills to identify and avoid the online dangers. If somebody approaches you, in a wrong way, you need to know to identify and protect yourselves. And also educated system or education systems, but not only focus on these notebook learning, but also must actually educate you or should give you digital literacy as one of their core curriculum. Next one, you need to regulate child influencers on social media. There are children influencers on social media, right? So legal protections must actually be given to them. Next one, responsibility on social media platforms. That's what I told you. The platform which actually gives you that particular social media like Instagram, etc., must give the accountability of providing a safe environment over there. Okay. Rather than only preventing harm, they should foster positive digital environments as well, and the use of age verification technologies must be there so that it is useful, and it raises the privacy concerns due to the collection of personal data. The next one, global regulatory models for child protection should be there, because there are a number of models that are followed in countries like UK and other countries of the West. And also platforms like, if you see, Meta and TikTok have implemented significant changes in order to improve child safety.
If we talk about the third article of the day, Bombay High Court and Centre, they are having a tussle here. So what is this tussle all about? So Bombay High Court, they have struck down Centre's amended IT rules. So here we have to talk about IT rules per se. What is this fact check unit all about? How is it impacting our fundamental rights? So which fundamental rights per se? So there are certain questions which we need to understand from exam perspective here. So question related to IT rules, IT sector, cyber security has been asked by UPSC earlier. What is the context here? Bombay High Court recently quashed the amended IT rules 2023. So we'll try to understand IT Act from 2000 and we'll trace its history, and we'll try to see the amended version of 2023 and what were the objections raised by Bombay High Court and why they quashed it rather. So which empowered Centre to establish a fact check unit. Centre was like, there are so much misinformation here about the government. So what we will do, we'll establish a fact check unit to identify fake, false and misleading content, and then whoever is posting it will tell them to take it down ASAP. Again, you should not be using such kind of word in exam. Never use ASAP, never use small abbreviation. That is a WhatsApp lingo. ASAP is as soon as possible. When we are telling things, we can say it, but in exam, write the full form, never write the abbreviation. So IT rules 2021 original framework passed by the government, and then the amended things. We'll talk about it. We'll try to understand it from entirety. So information technology intermediary guidelines, you don't need to remember the whole name of the rules. It was introduced to regulate social media intermediaries, OTT platforms. There were certain OTT platforms believed to be promoting vulgar content and everything. So there was a need. Some of it is justified what government did, but then there are certain points which were not liked by Bombay High Court, because of which it struck down the amended provisions or the IT amended rules of 2023. So what are the key provisions of 2021 IT rules? Intermediary regulation. Social media platforms must appoint officials for compliance and grievance handling. And user complaint must be resolved within 15 days and illegal content must be removed within 1.5 days. Traceability. Significant platforms must identify the originator. This reminds us, or maybe it reminds you also, of Telegram founder. He was arrested in France and he was like, I cannot tell you the originator of a particular, because the privacy is of utmost concern to Telegram and its founder. So traceability, government was also saying that no, whoever is sending any kind of objectionable message, platforms should be able to identify the originator, impacting encrypted services. And again, hope you can understand what issues means platforms like Telegram can have on this particular provision of, or from this particular provision of IT rules 2021. Again, but this is not the reason why Bombay High Court has struck it down. Why it has struck it down, we'll talk about it. So IT rules 2021 and 2023 amendments were framed under the original IT Act was passed in 2000 rather. And then what happens? You keep on adding, government comes, they keep on adding certain stuff. So these are all amended rules or IT rules or different amendments which has been done. This act provides a legal foundation for regulating digital content, ensuring cyber security and supporting e-governance in India. Again, pay attention. E-governance, GS paper 2, you have e-governance, use of ICT tools to deliver government services. That is e-governance. And second ARC, ethics and governance report has also talked about e-governance a lot. So it also extends jurisdiction to crimes involving computers or networks in India. Even if you are a foreign national, you are in India, you're committing some such crimes, you will be framed under different IT rules. Now amendment. What were the amendments which were done in 2023 because of which Bombay High Court has struck down those amendments? So fact check unit. So again, Bombay High Court has major issue with this fact check unit. So when you are saying that this information is false, misleading, what is the criteria? And then business of the central government. What is business of the central government? That is very vague. What comes under business of the central government? My daily activity, I'm going for a running. Is it under business of central government? What exactly is business of central government? This is very ambiguous. So, and they're saying that it is impacting Article 14, right to equality, Article 19, different clauses, which is about freedom of speech and expression. How right to equality is impacted? Government is having too much power. So it's at a very higher pedestal and the people are at a very lower pedestal, because via this fact check unit, you can always claim that this information is false. And then let's go to court, let's have a discussion, 5 years passes and then you realize that no, that actual information was true. So government has too much power. Is right to equality getting compromised? Bombay High Court thinks so. So content regulation and compliance, social media intermediaries were mandated to act on content flagged by the FCU. Scope of the amendment, the rules applied specifically to content related to business of central government, which was criticized for being overly broad and vague. What exactly is business of central government, man? Key reasons for quashing the amendment. So court is telling that 3 particular fundamental rights, and one, like you have sub provisions. Article 14, right to equality. Government is at a very higher pedestal, people are at a very lower pedestal. That should not happen, and right to equality should be ensured. Article 19 clause means clause 1 subclause A, Article 19 clause 1 subclause G are also getting violated. We'll talk about these particular fundamental rights as well. By imposing vague and arbitrary restriction, business of central government. What exactly is business of central government? Right to equality. Equality before law, equal protection of law to all individuals within the territory of India. Prohibits discrimination on arbitrary grounds, and again here Bombay High Court is like, all these are fake content and everything which you are saying, and you are not defining what is business of central government. In a way, you are discriminating on arbitrary grounds. That is one of the point raised by Bombay High Court. Article 19 clause 1 subclause A, freedom of speech and expression. People will be terrified before saying anything, especially journalists who are anyway very terrified, like in any country which is democratic. We're not talking about India per se. So freedom of speech and expression is also getting compromised to a certain extent. Article 19 clause 1 subclause G, right to practice any profession. When you are having fact check unit and you are checking every fact, you are going into the micro details, you are doing micro management, what will happen? Will people take journalism? Will journalists go and do something else? So this article provides the right to practice any profession, and Bombay High Court was saying that this whole provision, amended rules of 2023, is impacting a right to practice any provision or profession as well. And this particular article ensures that citizens can pursue their livelihood without unreasonable restrictions from the state per se. Key reasons again, vagueness and overreach. What is like fake, false and misleading? What is fake according to you may be true according to me. What is false according to you may be true. It's not like sun rises in the east and it's a universal truth. Informations can be framed in different manners. And again, chilling effect. The rules create a chilling effect. People will think, even if I'm saying something correct, I have to think twice, thrice or more than that, because I don't know what fact check unit will take to be true or false, or so chilling impact on free speech, where individuals and platforms might self-censor to avoid potential penalties or loss of protection.